As per my description is I went to Brazil 4 times, July of 2005, December 2006, July 2010, and September 2011. How I came to be is I met a Brazilian woman when she was here visiting, met her at a dance, got to know her a little bit, got to meet her sister because her sister spoke English and was living here. So I saw her for a few times, drove her back to the airport with her son when she was leaving, and she said, "Why don't you come visit me in Brazil?" Now, you know, this is Brazil. Never been there before. So the first thing is Sao Paulo, because all of the international airlines come in, international flights come into Sao Paulo. And you can see by the skyline, this is only a very small part of it, but it's huge. It's just huge. It's a 24-hour city. Millions and millions of people. Coming in the morning and you see the skyline, it almost looks surreal because of all the towers, and it just goes on and on and on.
You take this photo really with a low speed?
This is public domain pictures. So this all came out of public domain.
Okay.
No, I didn't take it. So the big thing about Sao Paulo is the skyline when you first see it, because it's just immense. The people, I mean, it's just a lot of people. It's 24 hours a day. Lots of people. The food, we've gotten to eat in restaurants. The food in Brazil is excellent, and the government is very strict about hygienic cleanliness in restaurants and food. And if by some chance someone makes a complaint, they'll bring someone in and they'll close you down until you clean up your act, so to speak. But the food is very good in Sao Paulo. Malls, they have malls here. It's like everything in this country, only the language is different, the signs are different, but you'd feel at home in Boston or New York. This is where you'd feel comfortable also. More Sao Paulo. It just goes on and on and on. You know, 14 million people last count. Now, my ex-wife and her family lived in a small city called Maringá. And it's a city that tourists really don't go to because it's basically a city for the people who live there. This happened to be a cathedral in the shape of a cone. I want to see if there's there it is over to the left. And you go in there and you look up and you see this big cone. It's a beautiful cathedral inside, and it's pretty much the main attraction of Maringá. There it is again.
That's very big.
Another view of that in Maringá.
Did you know somebody, did your ex-wife's family have somebody living in this town?
Well, basically her parents and brothers and sisters and in-laws lived in Maringá.
Oh, okay.
As far as what its claim to fame, I would say the cathedral, and it's a growing city, so they're building up the high-rises, they're putting up apartment buildings, they got malls there, but it's just growing at this particular time. All right, we are in Recife. Now Recife, it's close to the equator, and it's like Miami Beach. You got the beach on one side, you got the high-rises on the other side, and this over here, they have signs up on the beach. So you have your main boulevard, And you get your sidewalk, and you get the vendors who are selling drinks and stuff. And there's the beach, and then there are people sitting on the beach, but they're not going in the water. Now, they have shallow tidal pools, and then there's like a volcanic jetty, if you want to call it. But if you go beyond the jetty, you'll get eaten up, because this is for sharks. They have tiger sharks, and they have bull sharks. And they'll come right up even calf deep, and they'll eat you. Now, I found out why this happened when I got back, is the government built an offloading pier for the oil that comes in to Recife. And what it did is that it upset the breeding grounds and the feeding grounds of some of the sharks. So they had to be displaced. And they had to be displaced in the Recife beach area. There was a river that came down into the ocean, into the Atlantic Ocean. 7 miles up the river was a slaughterhouse. They closed the slaughterhouse down. But the drippings and everything else kind of found its way into the water and down into the ocean. So it attracted the sharks. And the same thing with the people. You go in and you stay in the tidal pool, but that's it. Don't go out further, because you might not come back. And these signs are all along the beach. So you see a beautiful beach and people sitting on the shore next to the beach. And again, the beaches, the warning posters, and the origin of the shark migration. All right, there's another one.
Do you know how long ago the slaughterhouse was closed down?
I don't know. I would say maybe within the past 15, 20 years or so.
I'm curious if they would ever move to a different location.
Well, I don't know. I mean, you upset the breeding grounds and the grounds and everything. So that's where they are. And then there's people, I mean, these sharks they're the two most vicious sharks in addition to the great whites. The bull sharks and the tiger sharks. They'll go after people, they're man-eaters. So as you can see, people are selling stuff. People are sitting along the beach, but you don't see anyone in the beach, in the water. Okay, there it is again. You see the hotels and everything around there. And this is all volcanic debris. You see a few people in over here, but they're within this boundary of the beach. But that volcanic, whatever you want to call it, barrier protects the people from the open ocean and the sharks. This is Olinda. Olinda was a town full of churches, like some of these churches here. You see the steeples. There's a whole lot of them, and at one time, slaves coming over from Africa would dock in Olinda, and they would have slave markets there. And because Brazil was always being taken over by Portuguese and Dutch and Spanish, all the churches have these little tunnels that are interconnected, so in case the enemy comes in, they can hide in these tunnels and go from one church to another church. Olinda has its old town, which is beautiful colonial types of buildings from the 1800s, early 1900s. It also has the oldest synagogue in South America, the old colonial architecture there. Here's another view of some of the churches in Olinda. That area, that in the middle is an old church. Now it is this area where I picked up the lava drops. And right behind us, I'll show you a picture of a sign, a big, tremendous sign that tells the story of when the continents split. So I saw that, and it's an old, old church just burnt out. All right, some more Olinda, more churches. Again, you can see the top of the picture, that barrier, that volcanic barrier. This is out, oh wait a minute, this is Capo di Sant'Agostino. And Capo di Sant'Agostino, where it was put in, this is Capo di Sant'Agostino, the Cape of St. Augustine. And that's where I picked up the lava drops. This is back in Olinda. This is one of the beaches near Capo di Sant'Agostino, just deserted. You can go there and there's no one around to bother you. It's just really, really nice.
There's no shots?
Excuse me?
There's no shots?
No, no, not there.
It also looked like the rock was volcanic.
Yeah, everything is volcanic there because, again, it's right along the area where this breaking up of the continents occurred. Okay, this is Iguazu Falls. Iguazu Falls has 200 waterfalls. It just goes along. One side is Argentina, other side is Paraguay, and the other side is Brazil. And I walked out onto the little platform over there, but it's just beautiful. I don't know what considers a waterfall, whether it's maybe something like this, but they said there are 200 plus waterfalls there. So it borders Argentina. Nearby is a hydroelectric power plant. And it is on the border between Paraguay and Brazil. I think, I don't know what percentage of the energy requirements are taken care of with this, and it does a whole lot for Brazil too. The amount of energy that's being generated, and it is huge. I mean, huge, huge structure. Right near there is, you can put 1 foot in Paraguay and 1 foot in Brazil.
You don't need to have a visa to go.
Well, I'll tell you a little story about, here's some more pictures of it. You're probably looking into Argentina on the other side of this. Right near there also, there is a federal nature preserve with all kinds of species of animals and like a rainforest type of situation.
Which country is that part of?
That is in Brazil. That's in the Brazil side, yeah. Here is Recife again. We're back in Recife, and it's a city, but what you don't see is you see the high-rise buildings, but if you look around here, there are more modest types of buildings. And one time we're in a car and we're going some of the side streets, and on the sidewalk I see this big 400 or 500 pound hog in the sidewalk. And I says, wait a minute, something doesn't look right here. What is this big hog doing there? And of course, you know, they're chewing on the garbage or whatever, but it's right in the middle of the city. And it is, because it is near the equator, it's very hot and humid there. But that's Recife. And Olinda is near there.
So it's a mix of, small farmers and very modern buildings.
Right.
Interwove.
Yep.
Yeah.
No zoning. The zoning is just mixed together. Here's another area near Capo di Sant'Agostino. It's very close to that cove, that deserted beach that I showed you. That would be more off to the left. But there is a resort there. And where are we now? This, I believe, is Santos. Let me check. This is Santos. Santos is the largest port in Brazil. Sao Paulo is located up on a mountain. Rio is a port city, but Santos is maybe an hour outside of Sao Paulo on the water. And where my ex-brother-in-law lived was, I would say, somewhere in this area over here. He was on the 14th floor of a 15-floor building that looked out there, and all of the ships come in from the ocean, go through that narrow up here into the port city of Santos. And again, you're just looking over the balcony because his balcony overlooked the water. So you can watch the sunset, you can watch the ships come in. It's just amazing. It's just amazing. It also has, and I'm not sure of this, but they have a garden. If you follow this greenery, either I thought it was on the World Heritage Site or it's in the Guinness Book of Records for the longest garden in the world.
I think it's a World Heritage.
Maybe it is a World Heritage Site, but it's also a very long garden that came. And you have the what is there? Well, whatever. But that is Santos. That other city there is Guaraná. And it just goes, this is the way it curves. So,
it's so strange to see this ultra-modern city next to what looks like uninhabited hills.
yeah. Yeah. Now there is a big hill, probably around here, and you go up, and there's a big hill, private communities with armed guards. They're very big about armed guards there. And I happened to see, my wife and I happened to see a condominium, 2 condominiums, and a new building that was going up, and they were like $1 and $1.5 million, and there were 2 floors, and I'm getting lost, you know, the room here, a room there, up and down, and who has these but soccer players, because soccer is the big thing there. Okay. The thing also about key talking points, and I'll tell you some little personal things happen too. The people are very friendly, they're very gracious. If you're from the United States, they don't care. They're just warm, wonderful types of people. The food is always fresh, it's well prepared, and the cleanliness in all the restaurants, you don't find any dirt or any mice or whatever, animals there, because the government is very strict about cleanliness in those things. The minerals, again, besides the minerals, you have soy, coffee, sugar, other minerals. So it's a country with a lot of natural resources, and it's just huge, very huge country. You see the contrast in the people's lives. You see very wealthy people, and you see people living out on the street. I mean, it's very sad to see people who are emaciated and who are living out on the street, where you have other people, well-to-do people. So the weather, I've been in Brazil during different times of the season. Their summer, which is our winter, it's brutal because people don't have air conditioning in their home. The electricity is so expensive that you open up your windows and you put a ceiling fan on. You want air conditioning, you can go to restaurants, offices, banks, whatever, and that's where you'll find your air conditioning. Again, the country is below the equator, and I usually ask people who've never been, who've traveled, have you ever been to a country below the equator? And a lot of people say no. They go to Europe, they go to Hawaii, they go to Asia, go to South America, well, parts of South America, but very few people have gone, below the equator, and that's where things get really hot. Their winter, maybe it would go low, the lowest 40 degrees for a day, and then get up to 50, 60, maybe 70 degrees. Maybe you have a jacket or so. Maybe it's similar to San Francisco. I understand what the weather would be like out there. But it's brutal. When we were close to Recife, a place called Gaibu, where my brother-in-laws lived, they're right on the water. And it's so hot that if you get a drink with ice, the ice melts very quickly. It doesn't get a chance to cool the drink because it's just too hot. Again, Portuguese is the principal language. The other considerations to get into the country, besides your passport, you need a visa. It just makes life that much easier. Because if you don't have a visa, they could scrutinize you. Why are you coming in here? How long are you going to stay? Da-da-da-da-da. Whereas if you get a visa, it's not a problem. It's a long flight from the United States. I've flown from Boston either to New York or Boston to Atlanta to Brazil, but you're talking 11-hour flight to get there. And of course you're traveling at night, but when you arrive, it's usually in daybreak, and you're arriving in Sao Paulo, and you see the buildings and everything, and it's just mind-boggling. Security, it's a big thing with security, because buildings, like your high-rise buildings, the property is surrounded by walls with barbed wire, and there's concrete little guardhouse, and they have guns. They get checked out because who are you going to visit? What are you doing? So security is at a maximum. The first time I went to Brazil, I wanted to go into a bank to get some money cashed, checks cashed, and they happened to have a Bay Bank. Was it a Bay Bank, or a Bank Boston? I think it was a Bank Boston. Now what you do is you came up, you walk up the stairs, and there's like a little vestibule, little whatever you want to call it, revolving door. And what you do is you go in there and you put your bag or whatever in a Lazy Susan, and they scan you, and then they open up the door and you can go into the bank and collect your bag or whatever. Malls are different, but banks and buildings, there is security there. And again, everything, houses, apartments, condominiums, all have guards in little guard boxes to monitor, your entrance and exit.
So this wasn't just because you weren't a Brazilian. The people living there, as they move about from visiting and doing business,
Yeah,
go.
everyone gets checked out. Lessons learned. Well, What would I do differently? I had to do it again after experiencing the trips. Go back and experience some more because there's a whole lot more to see. Just a couple of little personal things. When you talk about security, there was one time we were going to a beach, and along your highways, I don't know, every 10 miles or so, there's like a little police station in the middle of the road. And every 5 or 6 cars, they may pull you over. And this one time when we were going to the beach, and we saw the guard station, the little police station along the road. And on the way back, it was our time to get stopped. So I was driving, and so they pull us over, and the officer comes over to me and asks me for my license, but my wife said, well, he doesn't speak English. He's American, he doesn't speak English. So I give him my passport, give him my driver's license, and he walks around to where my wife and her parents and a couple of nieces were. And, you know, they're talking, and finally he says, well, put on your lights and check your brakes and all this type of stuff. Well, what happened is that brother-in-law recently got the car, so not all the paperwork was transferred. So the police, you know, I guess they asked my wife and her family, would you like to make a contribution? So they gave him $20, you know, of their money. Now the funny thing was, this was like a Toyota Highlander, like a SUV. Well, what happened is that the battery died. So these police who stopped us had to push us so I could jump start the car. And then we went along our merry way. But yeah, it's an amazing country. I said the people are very nice. There are more places I wish I could go to. I picked up some of these minerals and such because they just, you buy them there and they come right from the country itself. I was mentioning before you came in about the round sphere, and there's like a 5-foot one in diameter that was in the lobby of this place that sells the minerals. And these cathedrals, these churches, these cathedrals, or whatever you want to call them, it's rock, and then if you split them open like a geode, you have these tremendous crystals, similar to what I showed you, terminated crystals. If you happen to go to a store or a mineral show in this country and see them, you're not going to see them very high. It might be 2-3 feet high, but these are like 5-6 feet tall. They're just magnificent. Brazil does have a Walmart. Sao Paulo has a Walmart, but it's not like our Walmart because they don't have their own brands of stuff. There was a mall in Recife. It was such a big mall that they had 3 food courts. So that's pretty much it.
How often did you encounter anybody who did speak English or a little bit of English?
In my wife's family, her 2 sons, a sister-in-law, a nephew, they spoke English.
Is it because they had come?
They've come here, and because they're younger, they're in their late teens, early 20s, that they get taught that in school. And it's easier for them to pick up the language.
Merrick, how challenging was it to get your visa?
No problem. The first time I had to go, I went down to the Park Square building in Boston because the consulate is there. And you got to go and get there early and get a visa. It's about $100. And you submit a picture and your $100, and then they'll send it to you. But it's worth it. Now, the other good thing about Brazil that I noticed is seniors rule. I mean, when I was coming back to the United States, and you go into the Guarulhos airport, which is the international airport, and there's lines of people waiting to buy tickets and waiting to go through security. Well, I found out that if you're a senior, my wife took me over to the entrance to the security gate, said he's a senior, And I waited a minute, and he says, come with me. I went through security, and then I went to the gate, and that's it. You go to movies, there's a special line for senior citizens and handicapped people. You go to a supermarket, there's special lines for seniors, seniors, mothers with children, and older people. And buses, the same thing. I get to ride for free. In Santos, there's an aquarium. Well, because I'm a senior, I got in for free, and I had to pay $7.50 for my wife, because she wasn't a senior. But seniors rule, and no, I guess that.
No, we got it back.
Oh, we got it back. Okay. All right. This is Brazil. Goes all the way over here. So if you look at that in the land mass of the United States, I would say Brazil is close to 75% the land mass. This over here and this over here is the areas where the continents split. So, and again, we went to Paraguay. Oh, Paraguay was another interesting thing. We were going to Paraguay to meet some relatives of my wife. They were Paraguayan. And you go over this bridge, there's this friendship bridge from Brazil, and you go through customs immigration, showed them my passport, and got into Paraguay, in this city. Now, the city right on the border is amazing because between stores, malls, shops, vendors, 7,000 to 8,000 stores. And that's, vendors, shops, malls, any type of commerce. But 7,000 to 8,000 of these things. It's all duty-free, tax-free, because you get a lot of people from Brazil to go into Paraguay to buy mechanical types of things that are buy for stores, and then you get Paraguayans go to Brazil to get certain things also. But on the way, so we got to stay, we got to meet our connection, and we were supposed to stay at one of our hosts' houses, but because there was some other family staying there, we were put up in a 5-star hotel on this community. There's a community, a gated community, and it does have a hotel, and it is gated, and you get checked out, and all the guards are armed. They don't fool around. So we stayed in a 5-star hotel for free, and we were the guests of honor at a dinner that our host has with his business partners. Once a month they get together, the husbands and the wives, and they get together and they have dinner together. And we were a host of honor. We were guests of honor over there. So really, really nice. So getting back into Brazil, they didn't check my passport. Again, when I went through Brazilian customs to Paraguay, the officer wasn't going to let us in because we needed a visa for Paraguay. It was like a Friday afternoon, and he says, well, what are you doing here? He says, we're going to meet some people and all that. And he said, well, you got to. So I said, where do you have to go to get this visa? You have to go into the city, this other city that's, way, way far away. So he finally let us in. So he didn't stamp my passport or my visa. So when we were going out and I was going back to Brazil, the immigration looked at me and they didn't see a visa. And I told them what happened, and they know what goes on. Just they didn't stamp it, go. And that's how things, get done there.
So once you get out of Brazil, when you came back, you need a new visa? Or?
No, you just have to show your visa, but my passport didn't show that I was in Paraguay. Yeah. So, I was, but I wasn't. Any questions or anything that I didn't?
Yes. So when you walk on the street,
Yeah.
is this really hard for you to find someone who can? Suppose you're lost, are you able to find someone who should, give you at least a simple
Well,
directions?
my wife was with me all the time.
Oh,
So.
okay. So
There is a cashew, and that's the fruit that it grows on.
Oh my God.
that looks like an apple.
Yeah.
That's what it looks like, a very small apple.
Yeah.
So what I have here, they came right off the fruit of the tree.
Are you able to eat the apple?
You
part?
can, it's a bland taste, but they make the juice from it and they can make mixed drinks with it.
Is this sweet?
Not really sweet, more bland, if anything.
I had it dried once.
Yeah, it wasn't good.
It was, sort of dry, leathery, mildly sweet. The sweetness concentrates when you dry fruit, so
Yeah,
it's pretty nice.
but that's what that's where a cashew comes from. So it's a good barbet. Where do they come from?
Yeah, absolutely.
Any questions?
I have one more question.
Yeah.
So when you live there, travel there, what do you think of their price level compared to here? Are
Prices?
Are they expensive? Are they not expensive?
Everything in Brazil has to be imported, just like here. Things come from China, things come from Japan. A lot of people think that if they get a designer label, that it's actually like Ralph Lauren or some of these Parisian manufacturers, that it actually comes from Paris, it doesn't. It comes from where we get our stuff from. But it's the name recognition, the name brand. So everything has taxes on it. Import tax, duty, we once sent a package as a gift, these Lego types of things, and it took almost 6 months to get there, plus the Legos cost about $250, it was another $300 to get it to them,
From here to there.
from here to there.
US dollars?
Excuse me?
US dollars?
Yeah, just about US dollars, yeah.
But when you go to restaurant, what do you think of the price?
The prices in the restaurants are very good. What you'd see here, you can get different types of restaurants, but the food is very good, the pricing is very good with the restaurants. But like a pair of, say, Reebok sneakers, we might be able to get for like $75 here. In their money, it might be 200 of their dollars, because everything's got to be imported and taxed, and it's just a lot of bureaucracy.
If it can be locally produced, it will be much cheaper.
Yes. Now, leather, for instance, because Brazil and Argentina have this thing going, who has the best beef? Argentina says we do, Brazil says we do. So there's a lot of leather goods, and that you can get good price on leather goods there.
What about real estate?
Real estate is pricey. It is pricey, unless, again, you don't want to live in a city and you live in a house, but then there's the security problems unless you live in a high rise. You got to pay your taxes. You get a car, you're going to pay taxes on your car. The thing that I noticed about the cars in Brazil is that they're all European. A lot of Peugeots, Renaults, Alphas, some GM cars, but not the GM cars that we are used to over here.
Do they pay property tax?
Yeah, they pay property taxes.
High?
Again, I don't know. I didn't have, learn about that situation.
So when you get your visa, could you stay there for extensive
I
periods?
guess so. I guess 3 months or so. They tell you what it is. It could be a few months that you're able to stay there.
Yeah.
But travel, when you're traveling long distances there, Like from Sao Paulo to Maringá, it's an 8-hour bus ride. Why? Because the buses go at night and they can only go 40 miles an hour. Whatever it is in kilometers. And they get checked because along the roads, the police could check you to see you speeding, and they have these little tickets that they check. So the buses got to go slowly. So an 8-hour bus ride, whereas if you fly, it's an hour and a half.
There's no train to go between.
No, buses mostly. There are trains in certain areas, but mostly buses.
Those people, do they own cars?
Yep, people own cars, but again, they're the small cars. Gas is expensive.
Double the price here?
Yeah, but that's why they have the smaller cars that can get the good gas mileage. And a lot of their cars use alcohol. How they spell is ALCOOL. You don't get as good a mileage, but it's cheaper than regular gasoline.
Very interesting, Mayor. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Learned a
Thank you.
lot.
Yeah, if you want to again.